Our focus standard for this lesson is from Grade 8 Functions, Standard B, Use Functions to Model Relationships Between Quantities. Our topic for this lesson comes from Analyzing Functions, where we're going to be analyzing keywords in function word problems. Our essential question today is, what keywords help me write equations for linear word problems? Please take a moment, as always, to pause the video if you need to and make sure that your header is complete, making sure to include today's date, sub your question column and your note column, and resume the video, ready to begin. So I want to start off by just giving us some information about keywords in word problems where we know that they're going to be linear. And so in linear word problems, we know we have rate of change and a starting value. And oftentimes in word problems when they're talking about the rate of change or the slope, they're going to use these words or phrases: per, for each, for every, or rate. And I've included a little additional information, and to be quite honest, this would be the same for per as well. The word that follows for each or for every is going to be your x variable, and that'll help us out here in a minute. And so that's important to note as well. So these are the 4 key phrases or words that they tend to use when they're just using with the numbers that they're going to use for the rate in the story problem. And then our starting value, or our b value, oftentimes is used as fee or initial. Sometimes they'll talk about like being gifted a certain amount of money or a starting point, but these 2 are the most common that I have found in word problems that my students use. So those are keywords that are going to help us as we're reading through the problem to say, oh, these numbers, when they're using these phrases, the numbers that are around that are probably going to be my rate of change. And the numbers that are around these words, fee and initial, are going to show me where my starting value is. Then we also have to be able to determine which is x and which is y. And so that's part of identifying independent and versus our dependent variables. And so I have a couple of tricks. My first is a sentence frame, where you try and fill in the sentence blank depends on blank with the variables or the quantities that they're talking about in the story problem. The first one is going to be your y, and that's a really tiny y. It's hard to see. But whatever word makes the most sense here is going to be your y variable, and whatever word makes this sentence true is going to be your x. So something like, the height of the tree depends on how many years it's been growing, right? So height would be the y, and years would be the x. So another way to pay attention to this is that the dependent, or the y variable, will always be what you're measuring, in where the independent, or the x variable, will be the checkpoint or what we're controlling in the situation. So that's just a little bit more information and tips on how to identify the independent versus the dependent variables in linear word problems. So today we're going to take a look at 2 word problems and try and figure out the rate and the starting value, as well as which one is x and which one is y. So let's take a look at our first problem. For our first problem, we have an online streaming service that charges a sign-up fee of $13 plus $5 every month to stream your favorite media. We need to write an equation for the cost of the online streaming service. So look and see, compare this to some of the information up here. How do you think we would fill this in? And pause the video maybe and fill it in, or pencil it in, or at least think about what you'd put in for each spot. So here's what I see. Right away I see a fee of $13. And here I see the word fee. So fee is telling me my starting value, so I'm going to say that the starting value is starting out at $13. That's what I'm going to have to pay right up front. And then I also have to pay $5 every month. Well, for each or for every, that right here is giving me my rate of change. And so my m value is going to be $5. So we've got our m and we've got our b. We could write our equation, but we also want to make sure we really understand which one is x and which one is y. So using this sentence frame, the cost depends on, I realized I wrote blank and also gave a blank. That's not what I meant to do. So blank depends on blank. So the cost depends on the number of months. Right? That would make sense, because we wouldn't say the number of months depends on the cost. What's changing, what I'm measuring, is how much money am I spending. So my y is going to be the cost. And then the checkpoint is that every month, right? Every month they're sending me a bill. So that's really the checkpoint, or as we use in our sentence frame, cost depends on the number of months. And so x is the number of months. And the cost, the y is the cost. And we're talking about cost in dollars. So that helps us out a little bit more. We could go ahead and write an equation. We could also use the whole slope-intercept. If we needed to put this in fraction form, it'd be $5 as the change in y, because y is cost, every 1 month. Right? And so that would give me my change in y and my change in x. It would be 5/1. So from here we have enough information and we can go ahead and write our equation. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll take a look at our second example. So here would be our equation. Y equals 5x plus 13. So on to number 2. Here's our second equation. The Selwood Marimba Band is paid $20 per hour, as well as an initial $50 to play at Oaks Park. Write an equation for how much money Selwood Marimba Band makes performing at Oaks Park. So again, I want you to go through the same process as we did with the first example. See if you can fill this information in, as well as write your equation. And then pausing the video to do that, and resume the video to compare your work with mine. So from the story problem, this is what I gathered. Since they tell us that they were paid $20 per hour, I know that per is my keyword for slope, so I put that in here. And they're paid an initial $50 to pay. So that is going to be my y-intercept. They're paid $50 initially. So using this, I can set up a fraction. It's $20 per 1 hour. I might want to add that label in there. And so even doing this helps me figure out my y and my x. The $20 is the amount that they were paid, and it's $20 per hour, so hours is my x, that 1 hour. So x is the number of hours, y represents the amount paid, and that's of course in dollars. And the slope would be 20 and the b would be 50. So all we have to do is $50. So all we have to do now is write our equation. So an equation that we could use to represent how much money the Selwood Marimba Band makes performing at Oaks Park would be y equals 20x plus 50. And that's going to conclude our video for today. You may want to start writing your study guide questions in your summary. Make sure that your notes are complete, and then come ready to work with more problems like this in class.